Kingdom Hearts is one of my favorite game series of all time. It's one of the very first games I can even remember playing, and over the years I have played any Kingdom Hearts game I could get my hands on, good or bad. I even remember eagerly waiting for years to get that first Kingdom Hearts 3 trailer and then having to wait even more years just to get my hands on the game itself. And even now, after the release of the Kingdom Hearts 4 trailer, I find myself waiting for that game to come out too. While waiting, I recently got the urge to go back to the very beginning. I wanted to revisit Kingdom Hearts 1, where the story began, but this time not on the PS5 or 4 or 3, but all the way back on the PlayStation 2. I wanted to relive what I experienced all those years ago, and I loaded it up once again. For a little bit of context, my brother actually introduced me to Kingdom Hearts back in, I want to say, 2006. He introduced me to a lot of games, and two of those games were Kingdom Hearts 1 and Kingdom Hearts 2. Now, I first played Kingdom Hearts 2, and I would always play that over Kingdom Hearts 1 for some reason. I don't know if it was because I had a beefier save or what, but I would always choose Kingdom Hearts 2 over Kingdom Hearts 1. It became one of my favorite games, and I would replay it over and over again as a kid, and then I left it for a few years. I wouldn't really return until I want to say about 2011 to 2013, and then I did another playthrough. And then over the years, I have found myself redoing playthroughs every couple of years, and this is just another time where I was doing another playthrough. Now, typically, I would come back to the 1.5 Remix Edition or any of the remixes, but never have I actually gone back to the PlayStation 2 version since early 2011-ish. Even then, it was just Kingdom Hearts 2, it wasn't Kingdom Hearts 1, so I have no clue what exactly to expect here. So let's get into it. Now, the opening title screen is still a beauty no matter where you play it on. It doesn't matter if the pixels are worse or if the graphics aren't as fancy. The opening title screen itself is so amazing. And the opening theme, Dearly Beloved, is just so floaty, relaxing, and satisfying. I could honestly listen to it for hours, and I have before. It's one of the most relaxing tracks I think I've discovered in all of gaming, like, ever. Even here, it hits so hard being the original version of it. No updates, no anything, it's just Dearly Beloved. And as soon as you load into the game, and I just want to mention now, the little click that you hear whenever you click on something, that also lives in my brain forever. Love that. Don't know why, but it's very satisfying. So as soon as you start the game, you get the opening video, and even today, this looks good as well. Of course, it's a bit of CGI, of course Final Fantasy did this a lot over the years, and yeah, the game doesn't look that good, and it never will. But it was so cool even back in 2002 to see what gaming companies could come up with. And even today, this is still great. I love seeing the foreshadowing in this video as well. It's really a nice touch, and honestly, as I can imagine, someone who never played this game, I would be so lost watching this, but also, it's still super cool even if you have no clue what's going on. And then that brings us to the prologue. I skipped a little bit of introduction just because I didn't really want to get into that. And now I want to talk about Destiny Islands. This is the first kind of world that you'll encounter, and you don't even know it's a world, honestly. It's just home. It's just a beach. And I feel like this is kind of like anime episodes when they have a beach episode. It's fun, it's harmless, no real story goes on for the most part, and then, you know, they end the beach episode and then go back to the main stuff. This prologue is kind of like a beach episode. It's fun, it's vibey, you have these three kids on Destiny Island, and you kind of just roam around to this funky, really island-like music, and it's a good time. I even remember when I was a kid, I would always replay Destiny Islands, and I still don't know why exactly. I feel like it might have been because I didn't know how to progress in the game, but I would just replay it over and over again, and I've heard other people do the same thing as well for some reason. I love competing with Riku. You quickly establish this friendly rivalry that will honestly take part in a lot of the game itself. And the first thing you'll notice is this is a prologue, but there's a lot of challenge. You can do a 3v1 battle, you can battle Riku and get beat, Riku will race you, and honestly, it's not an easy race to win on your first go. So it's really nice to see a game with challenge right off the bat, but that's something to expect from older games, I think. And sure, there are some collecting missions where you have to go fetch a coconut or a cloth or some fish, and yeah, no one likes collecting things, but I think it fits the vibe of Destiny Islands as kind of like the beach episode. I do remember always struggling to find the cloth as a kid, but I think that was just me as a kid, because honestly now at this point, finding everything is pretty easy. But you do have to keep in mind, back in this time, there were no YouTube guides. Like, there was no, hey, let me just look up where to find the cloth. No, it was not like that. You had like a game guide or something. It was crazy. Wild times that was. I think one of the most highlighting things about Destiny Islands or the prologue is that it feels childlike. It feels like you're hanging out with your 3 friends on an island and you're just on an adventure and you don't really know what you're doing, but it's fun. It's bright and it's vibrant and it's colorful, but it also has a mysterious vibe to it as well. There's a mysterious figure who's creepy, and there's a cave that's creepy as well. I remember being creeped out of the cave when I was like 4 years old. It was kind of creepy. Eventually, if you know the story, darkness begins to overtake the islands, and then it takes Riku and Sora and the whole island, and Sora gets the Keyblade. Real lore stuff, and you know, it's not all gonna make sense, but cool stuff. We're getting a bit of that complexity with the story already coming in. I remember when I was playing this specifically, there's a section where you have to kind of go into a cave, and I remember not knowing where to go. I was thinking, oh, I had to defeat like the Heartless or something, and then a cutscene would happen. No, the game just doesn't tell you where to go. You just have to go there. And I remember being a kid being so lost on this. After this, we also get the first boss fight, and it's a nice introduction. Honestly, by today's standards, it's kind of like, you know, a cakewalk, but back in the day, Darkseid was very intimidating and I think a challenge. I can't really tell because I played this game so much over the years, but yeah. Destiny Islands also gets swallowed by darkness, so that's pretty interesting, I think. And what the hell does that mean for the rest of the game? Eventually, Sora wakes up in Traverse Town, which is kind of like a place for misplaced homes. It's a very contrasting vibe to Destiny Islands. It feels warm like Destiny Island does, but it feels completely empty. Like, there are more people in Traverse Town than there are Destiny Islands, but it feels so much more empty. There's a sense of gloom and doom all over the town in a way. And also, I remember here too, this is going to be a reoccurring theme, but it's not even 100% clear where you should go here either. I remember just wandering the town a bit, not knowing how to progress, and yeah, this is a thing in PlayStation 2 games. Just not gonna know where to go sometimes. Eventually, you do run into Leon from Final Fantasy. And now this makes me want to talk about this a little bit. The Final Fantasy characters in this game, like Leon, Cloud, Sephiroth, they just add so much. They are some of the coolest things, and honestly, back in the day when I first played this game, I had no clue that these guys were Final Fantasy characters. I didn't even know what a Final Fantasy was, okay? It sounds something weird, but also cool, but I didn't know what it was. Point is, these characters look cool regardless. The weapons they have, the attire, it all fits in with Kingdom Hearts, but also they all have their own distinct look. It's really nice. And even if you don't know Final Fantasy, these characters look freaking awesome. And you can just tell that these characters, these Final Fantasy characters designed, really influenced a lot of the Kingdom Hearts characters' designs. Like, I think there's an influence on Sora and Riku and Kairi and all of the like OG Kingdom Hearts characters. I feel like they have some design elements from Final Fantasy. And also getting to battle Leon is just very fun. It's cool, and it's also great that you can lose or win, so either way you can progress. At this point, you kind of learn a bit about the Keyblade, and also you get to team up with your party members, which will be Donald and Goofy. Yeah, Disney Donald and Goofy. How wild is that? I mean, how goofy is that, you know? Merlin also has his own little area in Traverse Town. Like, he has his own little house, and you know, you can go there. You have to go there throughout the game just to unlock certain little things. But honestly, I feel like it was a bit inconvenient, and I never would go to Merlin's house as a kid. I don't think I even went to Merlin's house until like 2013, which was like 7 years after I started playing the game. And at this point is when the game really opens up, because you can leave Traverse Town and the world map just boom shoots in front of your face. You can go, well, not anywhere, but you can really explore at this point. Which brings me to something I really wanted to mention. I noticed in Traverse Town there are so many puzzles and things to explore in this game. Like, just alone in Traverse Town, there is so many things of interest to interact with. You'll just be running across the screen and then you'll notice something that looks weird and you're like, I wonder what that is. You'll stop, look at it, see if you can do anything with it, realize you can't, and then move on. But it's interesting nonetheless. The funny part is, a major reason why you can't interact with a lot of these things is because you can't interact with them until you've unlocked more abilities. So there are just things that you would never unlock or figure out unless you came back with later abilities. This gives the game a lot of replay value, I think. Like for example, there are trinities that give you loot, but you can only like unlock certain ones and access them with magic you get later in the game. So some of them are just marks on the floor that you can't do anything with, but you think, okay, you know what, I'll come back to that. And it's also interesting going back to Kingdom Hearts 1 because it seems for the most part, puzzles have slowly phased out of Kingdom Hearts. Like I think maybe there's a couple in Kingdom Hearts 3 or Kingdom Hearts 2 and in later entries, but there was a big emphasis on puzzle and exploration in this game that isn't really prevalent in the later titles, so something to keep in mind. Along with that, there are also chests hidden all throughout the worlds that you encounter. Some of them are hidden very well, and some of them are just kind of easy give me chests that you can just grab, which I think is pretty fair because it gives everyone a chance to find them and kind of feel rewarded. If you want to do like the 100% challenge and just kind of find all the chests, that's rewarding. And if you just want to play the game regularly, ooh, there's a chest here, I get a cool potion, that's fun, you know? I think a lot of these things are quality of life things and really show the attention to detail that Kingdom Hearts had, especially being a first entry into a series. Like, very hard to nail that attention to detail being the first game in a series. I feel like it's time to really talk about the elephant in the room. The thing that is very controversial in Kingdom Hearts. So at this point, of course, you're exploring the world map, and in order to get places, you gotta use a Gummy Ship. A Gummy Ship is basically a rocket ship that you use to travel through space. And basically, because there are multiple worlds in the game, you gotta use these Gummy Ships to get around. How enjoying. Not fun, especially not fun replaying the Gummy Ship missions. I do think that Gummy Ship missions and the whole Gummy Ship idea and concept gets better throughout the series, but this is Kingdom Hearts 1 and these missions feel very dated. And you know, if there's anything that gives away this game is from 2002, it's these missions. Like, it's very clearly dated, and honestly, if they remove these in a remake of the game, I wouldn't complain. And I also think the sheer amount of them, like you literally have to do one to get to every world, it really slows down the game. Maybe that was the intention though, to, you know, give the players a breath, something chill, something relaxing until the next adventure, but I just feel like it was a bit of wasted space. Specifically, Kingdom Hearts 3 does do these Gummy Ship missions very well with having a very open world space area. And I think this is how it was supposed to be in Kingdom Hearts 1 as well, but I think the hardware of the time would not allow for such a big open space thing. That's what I'm assuming. But yeah, it's controversial. I think Gummy Ships, I have a bit of nostalgia to them, but I think overall, categorically, they're not fun. Now, once you get past the Gummy Ship stuff, you can start exploring the Disney world, which is one of the true highlights in this game. Honestly, one of the things that made me love this game as a kid is because there's Disney characters. You got Mickey, Donald, Goofy, Tarzan, Alice. I mean, the whole crew is here, and it's fun. You get to even go to the sets from the movie, essentially, or the world that these Disney characters would live in, like Alice in Wonderland, Olympus, the jungle from Tarzan. That's so cool to me. And I didn't really mention this too much before, but teaming with Disney characters is great. So you know, you have Donald and Goofy join your party, and that's great automatically. You have a mage like Donald and kind of a warrior of Goofy. And then you also get to team up with Tarzan, Hercules, Jack, Peter Pan. Like, dude, you're telling me 4-year-old me was tripping over this. And it's just as fun here because you get, you know, it's fresh. So almost every world you'll get a new character that you can kind of hang out with. Another thing about that is I feel like the game, and this is especially true when I was a kid, the game feels very lonely before you team up with Donald and Goofy. It takes about maybe 2 hours, maybe an hour and a half to 3 hours to get to the point where you start teaming up with them. And I just remember it feels kind of lonely going through Traverse Town without them. Maybe that's just me, but I like the game better when there's party members. I didn't even mention Aladdin. Okay, Aladdin is great too. Don't want to forget Aladdin. One major flaw with this system though is I wish there was an easier way to switch between party members. You basically have to go to a save point to switch party members, and that feels a little bit outdated, especially because what the hell is a save point in 2023? Anyway. And also, props to whoever's idea it was to make each Disney movie into its own world. Like, that is just so genius. Like, how would you even think about doing a game like this? Oh, we want to have Disney and Final Fantasy. Well, how do you have multiple Disney characters? You just make it entire worlds. Genius. Literally a genius. He deserves a raise wherever he is. Because ultimately, it's never not exciting when you know in just a few short hours you're going to be in another world. Like, you could go from being underwater to in a coliseum to in a jungle. I've said this a lot, but yeah, it's so unique and different. It's even really cool, and this also goes with the attention to detail thing. But, for example, in Halloween Town, Sora, Donald, and Goofy change attires to fit into the world, so they don't feel out of place. That's just fun. And it's also great to see the minor characters from Disney movies appear. And while they couldn't use a huge number of Disney worlds in the game makes sure to use even more Disney characters through the summon feature. I'll talk more about summons later, but just from a character standpoint, it is fun to see more Disney, but I feel like they could have picked better Disney characters. You have Bambi, Dumbo, Genie, Simba, Tinkerbell, and Mushu. Most of these are great, but who is asking to see Bambi and Dumbo? Who thinks of Bambi and Dumbo as fighters, okay? And while we're on it, Genie and Tinkerbell, they're already in the game, so we could have just, not used them and picked someone else. Moving on, there's one thing I want to highlight, and that is the Disney villains. They are treated like a big deal in this game. And, all of the villains kind of come together to form a supergroup with the idea of taking down Sora, and it's great to see them all interact together. This is something you would never see in like any Disney movie or any Disney property, but it can only exist in Kingdom Hearts. And for the most part, these Disney worlds that you visit, they're fun. They are great to play, and they fly by for the most part. There's maybe a few exceptions depending on who you ask. For me personally, one of the worst worlds, and this is just community-wide, one of the worst worlds ever, Atlantica. The main reason why it's so bad is you're literally a mermaid, and it takes away like half of your movement and battling and attacks. It takes away so much that you can do as Sora, and it just kind of makes combat boring. It also feels slow and clunky. It's not a fun world to navigate. It's very limiting, and just going vertically just to attack or miss an attack is kind of annoying. On the other hand, I want to highlight a world that I had a ton of fun playing. That's Deep Jungle. Tarzan, love Tarzan. And it's so exciting to see some of the areas like the treehouse, the campsite, or, Clayton in general, Jane. So cool. And having those little, I think they're cheetahs, correct me if I'm wrong, but the cheetahs be mini bosses. It's a fun switch up, and just being able to fight a freaking animal in this game, that's fun too. Oh, and I didn't even mention being able to slide down vines with Tarzan. Great touch, really cool. You can do a lot here. While we're talking about Deep Jungle, we have to talk about the world design. From playing the game alone, you can really tell how small the worlds are. And of course, I just have to say, that's because it's Kingdom Hearts 2, and we're playing a game that is 20 years old, so the worlds are going to feel small. But in a way, they also can feel small and tight, and sometimes even undercooked. What do I mean by that? Well, for example, Monstro is one that I haven't mentioned, but it's basically a whale stomach. So the entire world is basically just the same recycled asset. It's just the inside of a whale. Very lackluster. And Neverland is just Peter Pan's ship. The world itself is still enjoyable, but I wish they could have done more with like Neverland. And back to Deep Jungle real quick, there's one major problem I have with it. It's very confusing. Like I mentioned, PS2 games, around the time, they did not tell you where to go. If you didn't know, you just looked for 5 hours until you find it, or you just quit the game. And this game is no different. Going through Deep Jungle, you'll never know where to go or where you should be heading. You kind of just like aimlessly run around until the next cutscene happens. This also happens in Alice in Wonderland, Monstro, and I can even see it happening in other worlds as well. Speaking of undercooked worlds, let's talk about Olympus Coliseum. It's literally only the Coliseum. This world does get fleshed out more in Kingdom Hearts 2 and 3, but here it's literally just a battle arena, so you're thinking, oh, it's so cool to see Hercules. Well, it's literally just one room. Luckily, while you're going through these worlds, there are still plenty of tracks that play in the background that are just simply amazing and so catchy. These songs are honestly still in my head after all of these years. Tracks for Halloween Town, Deep Jungle, and Olympus Coliseum are some of my favorites that I just replay in my head all the time. And you also can't forget about the original Kingdom Hearts specific tracks that also knock it out of the park. Like I mentioned, Dearly Beloved, great. Simple and Clean, great. There are a few worlds that I do think are masterfully crafted though. Specifically, the end of the world is just a crazy LSD trip and one that is completely unforgettable. And with the way Kingdom Hearts 1 kind of layers out their worlds, there's a lot of hidden and sneaky areas where you can hide things. One world that did this very well is Agrabah. Comparing Agrabah in Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2, it's a completely night and day change in terms of world design. Kingdom Hearts 1 Agrabah has a lot of hidden sneaky chests and just a lot to explore and kind of dive into. One thing that Agrabah had that is a bit controversial, and I don't know how I feel about it, is the platforming. A lot of worlds in Kingdom Hearts 1 included platforming in some way. Personally, I did get annoyed by it sometimes due to like the clunky camera or Sora moving weird, but I think the platforming doesn't necessarily hurt the game, if that makes sense. Maybe I'm biased, maybe it's bad, but for me, it never hurt the game, but it could be annoying. So the main thing you're going to be doing in this game is combat. So how is it, right? Combat in Kingdom Hearts 1 feels exactly how you want combat to feel from this type of game. It's not floaty, and every time you attack something, you really feel like you're hitting something. I know that sounds weird, but just think about like with Call of Duty, when you shoot a gun, sometimes it feels like the gun has no weight, and other times it feels like the weight is just perfect and you really just shot someone. That's how Kingdom Hearts feel. And one of the brilliant parts about Kingdom Hearts 1 combat is you get to be as in depth with it as you want to be. If, for example, you don't care about what you use in fights, you can just use the default moves and weapons. If you want to switch weapons and abilities, you can do that too. And if you want to completely change out your loadout between every boss battle, you can do that as well. There are so many different abilities, magic spells, keyblades, summons to use. It's almost impossible to get bored of the combat. And sure, it's not Kingdom Hearts 2 combat, but hey, it's 2002 JRPG. It really revolutionized the game of JRPGs, so it's a lot of points for that. Now I will say, the balancing of some of the abilities in magic might be a bit off, but for a first attempt, I think they did pretty well overall. There's nothing that is... Well, there's a few things that feel a bit overpowered, but I digress. And also another thing, when I was a kid, I really forgot to use magic and summons in my original playthroughs. I don't know if that's the game's fault or mine, but for summons, I do feel like it's the game's fault. Because while some of them are really overpowered, they kind of feel like they don't exist. Like they're just kind of tucked away and you can use them if they want. Honestly, if they weren't in the game, you wouldn't even notice. But talking about something I want to highlight, it's the enemy design. You get to battle humanoid, monsters, animal. You get to battle anything you could even think of. The main enemy in the game is the Heartless, and they give you a ton of different foes, from big ones to little ones to flying ones. You can fight a ton of different, just Heartless alone. And don't get me started on the human battles. These were some of my favorites in the game, and all throughout the franchise, honestly. One of my absolute favorite battles is always Riku. We get to fight Riku a lot in this game, and every time it feels like the power levels have shifted and it's a fair fight. It's so great seeing him develop and just become stronger. Another great battle, Captain Hook. I want to give a shout out to him. Captain Hook is my guy. It was fun. And honestly, regardless of the difficulty you play on, I think there's always a challenge ahead in the game, whether you're a new, average, or seasoned Kingdom Hearts player. Which also, boss battles for the most part, I would say 90% of them are super enjoyable. Some of them are certainly more difficult, but overall there is a lot of uniqueness within every boss fight, I think. One boss fight I didn't really enjoy is Ursula in Atlantica, another reason why Atlantica's bad. And, you know, Ursula is one of the hardest fights in the game. If you're playing this game on the hardest difficulty, you are dying a lot. And it's just so hard to maneuver being a fish underwater. It sucks, okay? Ursula's bad. Oh, and secret bosses. I keep remembering things as I'm writing this, but secret bosses, okay? You can fight them after you kind of beat the game or towards the end of the game, and you got big ass titans, you got Final Fantasy Sephiroth, you got a freaking Clock Tower Phantom. These are cool as hell. I would have loved for them to be more lore based and more incorporated into the game, but hey, for secret bosses, I love getting these every single time because it really gives you a lot to do at the end of the game. You know, oh, I finished the game, now what? You go to this clock tower area and there's a damn phantom there. That's cool. And the most famous of these secret bosses is Sephiroth. And no matter who you are, you're gonna die a couple times before you learn the attack patterns of this guy. Speaking of those attack patterns, each enemy in this game has a list of moves they can use. And in this game, it's very important to learn those attack patterns for you to win, which ultimately makes a really rewarding experience. As you learn the attack patterns, you get better and better at the fight until you finally beat it, which is so satisfying. satisfying. Story-wise, Kingdom Hearts, as you know, is very famous for being complicated and impossible to follow. And yes, Kingdom Hearts 1 does have those layers in its writing that are still very complicated, and I don't understand everything in the game, even after playing it for the 10th time or whatever. But at its core, it does have a simple story in it that I think anyone can follow. Find your friends. You have 3 kids on an island wanting to go on an adventure and they get split up. Now you have to find the other kids. It's simple. And it's an adventure that anyone would be enticed to go through. Along the way, you go from world to world, stopping the heartless and evildoers of the world, and it's a great time overall. And the ending being that you don't end up finding your friends Riku and Kairi, that's just the perfect way to set up another game and a long adventure to come. So yeah, I won't go too much into the story, but I think at its core, you can just get a few concepts from it and enjoy it regardless. If you go deep into the weeds, you're gonna get a little confused. That's just Kingdom Hearts. There are some notes that I really didn't find a place to talk about that I want to talk about now. First of all, the final boss, I have mixed feelings on it. It's basically like, there's like 4 stages, and I like the humanoid stages, they're fun, but I did not like the very final kind of space void monster headed thing that was, it felt kind of floaty, like being underwater again, because you're just flying. It's not the best time, but that's a me thing. And another thing I didn't like, the save point system. Kingdom Hearts 1 follows the old school mindset of having save points, and sometimes these save points can be a pain if they're really far away from your objective. Also with those, sometimes the game will go forever without you reaching a save point. Like towards the end of the game, there are just swarms of enemies you have to fight, and it never seems to end with a save point nearby. Another outdated thing is that with this being a PS2 game and being a 2002 game, you can't skip cutscenes, which is heartbreaking. Every time you die, you'll have to reload and rewatch every cutscene. And if you're playing on a hard difficulty where you're dying a lot, this is gonna frustrate the hell out of you. I know I just kinda went on a negative tangent, but those are just some things I didn't really like. Overall, Kingdom Hearts is still a fan-effing-tastic game, but I will say, going back to the Kingdom Hearts 1 PS2 version, I would not recommend it if you're gonna play this game and you never have, which is weird because it's 20 years old, but if you are, just get the PS3 or PS4 version or PS5, or just don't go back to the PS2. Get the remake, okay? Skip cutscenes, have a good time, just play the game, enjoy it. It's definitely not the best game in the franchise, but it's a good starting point, and I think that's all really it was supposed to be, is a wild attempt to really merge Disney and Final Fantasy, and it worked. And then after that, we got a lot of really fun games. So thanks for listening to me replay Kingdom Hearts 1.